Everyone, welcome back. So yeah, we are just back from the discussions from the Weka driver and the NetApp vanilla driver, the gaps on the REST implementation. Let's continue with our agenda. So next up we have the service health checks. So we have Gotham and Francesco to discuss that with us. So Francesco, would you and Gotham, would you like me to do the screen share, or would you like to do the screen share yourself?
Good question. I
Hey,
think you can,
yeah,
but Francisco
yeah,
will be the one talking.
Sure.
yeah, you can share. Um, okay, so I think this no topic because this is based on something that we discussed in a couple of cycles ago, especially within the Nova group. Because the problem is for large deployments where you need to basically provide some health check for services, and you need to provide basically a wrapper on top of the deployed services to make sure that services are healthy, can process requests. And there are different problems associated to different components. So we have API usually behind WSGI. This is not true for all deployments, but that's a problem for API. Then we have, in our case, scheduler and share that can suffer the same problem because you can wrap health checks around scripts that are associated with an heartbeat table. You can do some log scraping to see if a service stopped working. And for WSGI, we have middlewares that we can use to see if that service is healthy or not. But this actually doesn't solve the problem for deployments where you have high flexibility in terms of scaling. You can basically deploy a lot of APIs like in Kubernetes, and you want to basically make sure that your service is up. And up doesn't mean that the process is just running, um, but it means that you can serve requests. And serving requests means that you need to basically go through the database, checking, for example, for Manila Share that the driver, the backend is working properly, and then you can start serving requests. So there are different problems that we can discuss from different angles. One is the L check itself that needs to prove that the service is able to accept the requests and it can be working. And the other problem is to require a good wrapper around these health checks to make sure that basically you can query these services and you have the same pattern across all the services. So in Kubernetes, there is the probe mechanism that we wrapped around scripts that are linked to the header pods, and the script is basically it exposes basically server that can be queried and can use the underlying Manila manage serverless commands to make sure that services are working. So if you go through that script, you can see that we're basically using the database connection to make sure that the service reports enabled and it's up. Um, the limitation for this script is that you can query all services, but you can really go through the full chain and see that you're actually you're able to serve requests. And if there are issues, we don't have a way to distinguish which kind of issue that we have. So there is this two aspects, right? The health check that should provide you the basic information, right? In Kubernetes, it's my service is alive, my service is dead. That's it. The other thing is that we can provide some sort of troubleshooting, right? A reason why the service is not working. So if we announce this, the proposal here is to enhance the health check system to provide a per binary system, an endpoint basically that can be queried, and this endpoint should provide a JSON script that can be used to see if under some logic that we can put behind this health check, the service is up or not, why the service can not be working at that particular moment. So I think in the other parts we have I tried to create pretty much. I started from the Nova spec that has already been proposed and approved, if I'm remember correctly. And I think that we can basically do something similar to be consistent with something that's already has already been approved. And because I think it's probably a good design because it's a fine grained way of checking health check. We can in Kubernetes we have several advantages. Those are available for. I'm not mentioning bare metal because it's pretty obvious that for bare metal, it will be even better. The fact that we can decide to have a net check based on sockets, or it can be exposed. Um, uh, but in general, it can have multiple states to define if a service is working or not. Like we have a green working service, we can have warnings, and we can have a red flag to signal that service is not working. Um, a- and apart from that, we need to basically, we probably want to discuss about providing config to make sure that the health check can be something local. You want to be them to be performant. So sometimes exposing them is not useful, or operators just don't want them to be exposed um, on a particular IP addresses, so they can simply be Unix sockets or they can be exposed. So there is already a proposal for that in the Nova spec about using a particular config option for health check. And yeah, the last part that I wanted to discuss before leaving space for questions or to dig more into this thing is that for Kubernetes, it's pretty simple. If you attach a probe to a service like Manila that we use to containerize, we need to check whether the service is up or not. Kubernetes is not able to produce and to process any JSON, so in theory, that part wouldn't be useful for that world. But from a human operator perspective that is doing troubleshooting or debugging, having the right status of the service with an output that describes what is wrong is interesting. For example, the share service that is attached to a particular backend, for example, CEF, or NFS, can report problems that can be related to the connection to the Ceph cluster, to the queuing permissions. Those are things that we usually track by scraping logs and see what went wrong through stack traces and things like that. So having this kind of output to be useful to enhance the human troubleshooting there. So I think there are a lot of things covered in this header part. Maybe we can start with some questions, or if it's a good idea, if it's something that we want to um, investigate more during the cycle or during the next cycles to improve the way we do health check. Because I think many systems can benefit from this proposal. So, um, Gordon, not sure you have things to add before.
Not add, but questions, I think. So,
Yeah,
so the NOAA implementation is not completed yet, but they did accept the
yeah,
spec. So I'm hoping it's kind of, at least the design wise, it's looking consistent. Um,
yeah,
because it totally makes sense that we drive consistency between services. Especially if there is an, a deployment or operator logic built on top of all of these services in some sort of consistent way. Um, so that is one missing thing, I think, just understanding if other services are doing this. But the proposal makes total sense to me. So I feel like we're trying to add this as a configurable layered approach for each service. So
Correct.
what is the health of a scheduler versus the health of the share can be decided within that code of that particular service. And
Yeah, exactly. So this should be disabled by default, which means that basically every existing deployment shouldn't be affected by this kind of addition. So it should be an opt-in from a deployment perspective to have this kind of config and enable this part, which means that basically existing deployments can continue to use wrappers that go through the regular Manila the manage list commands to query services and see if they are enabled or not. I think this is a must-have for this kind of proposal. The other thing is, yes, we started from Nova because I assume that we may want to be consistent for this kind of thing, and the output is what it's basically the same that has been approved for the Nova spec, which means that that kind of JSON is not something we are going to reinvent, but it's what has been already approved. I think it's good enough in terms of information, and it can be customized per component. Or I don't think it should be global because for API, scheduler, share, or Manila data, you have different meanings that or different approaches that you want to take when you expect that the health check should be processed. So yeah, I think those should be different per component.
agreed. Awesome. Yeah, I think I feel like
The
this needs a spec for sure.
yeah, I think so, especially because I was thinking about two things. Um, if health check are separated per component because those are implemented as per as um, within the process within the binary itself. If we discuss about Manila share, you can attach one or multiple backends. So reporting that Manila share pods or process is failing, it can be inaccurate if you have multiple backends because you don't know which is the backend that is failing and you don't want to mark as failed the entire process that runs. I know that in the Kubernetes words, we recommend to have multiple Manila shares, one backend per pod, which means that this can be easily solved in that words, but it shouldn't be accurate in the bare metal word in this case. So I think this is something that in a spec should be discussed and investigated to make sure that we find a solution that is valid for both use cases. And the other thing is if the Manila share that is attached to a driver to a particular backend should basically report something about the status of that particular backend. For example, in Ceph, you may have Ganesha or CephFS and native CephFS, and via Ceph status, you can catch something wrong in the backend itself rather than Manila. That is helpful when you're troubleshooting and you need to basically find which is the right piece that you need to look. So I was wondering if we should, at some point, in terms of implementation, provide an interface that can be implemented by drivers in case they want to report the status from the underlying driver. I know that the scheduler already tries to get some information, but the scope is different in that case because capabilities for the underlying backend is different from trying to see the status, the health check, the health status of the backend. So this is still a part of the open questions because it's something we want to probably investigate more.
Yeah, totally. I guess falling back to that scheduler hook that's already there might just give us to at least a one of the solutions that we could have, because we have a driver health check today that is like that. But it is possible we can think of extensions, right? Like, so for example, just like you said, there are pieces in the driver that probably could we could benefit if we could show the observability a little bit more about what's going on. Ceph is all right, Ganesha is not. That sort of a thing. Or like in other drivers, they could have similar modularity. Um, so that certainly an interesting enhancement to build on top of.
Yeah, as one last thing, when we discussed about the JSON outputs, I think this is a good approach when you want to attach this health check system to something that collects metrics and starts basically profiling the behavior of your components over the time. So that may be another thing that may help.
Yeah, totally. Without scope creeping too much, though, I feel like just having the basic knobs to say that beyond what we're established today, which is we add some sort of data into the database to state whether something is alive or dead, is helpful. And so we build from there, saying that we're trying to make this modular. And at the very basic, what we want to do is just check whether services that rely on RPC, services that rely on DB, are doing this part, and that's the part we propose to implement. And because this is modular, it can be extended in these ways, except we're not promising to implement that right away, because we want to call something done, and this would be the definition of done for our initial implementation, which is that all of the microservices, the obvious health concerns will be exposed. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think that way we would be able to make some progress in you know landing stuff. But this
yeah,
is this
I
is really
think
cool.
so.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing the investigation in the other what the other services are doing, and I like the approach that you're taking, which is trying to be consistent, because that matters a lot to operations, so we don't become a special snowflake.
Yeah, thanks. I think we had another topic that is pretty much related. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and I
I think
ended up hijacking your Etherpad for that.
no,
So
that's fine.
yeah, so the thing was graceful operations, again, something that we have spoken about in the past, but we've not really committed time and to do it. Based on Francesco's investigation that he was sharing, I kind of felt like a little more pronounced stuff happens when you start operating Manila services on top of Kubernetes, for instance. So you get this model where you have hooks into the service that are giving you signals that we're not today handling properly, which could make things easier and better for the human operator, so that they don't have to worry about you know things that are in flight, getting abandoned by the service themselves, by service itself, that they'll have to come in and fix. Today, the mechanism to fix anything is to go reset the state, or actually dig in and find out what happened in the first place, and before you do that, or go do some cleanups and rollbacks manually, which is a big pain. And so that's what this thought was around. So we have an established pattern today, which is at startup, we do some reconciliation, but we are not doing a whole lot of reconciliation there We're handling very little, and we're also some long running operations with the way we've built on top of it, top of the assumption that things can be stalled at any time, stopped, restarted at any time, is that we've sprinkled some micro states. And we use, for shares, we use something known as a task state, and we kind of track what's happening with that share at that time. So far, the biggest use case is migrations, but you can kind of extend and build on top of that to kind of see whether something can be restarted, can be checked on after the fact that you've just lost context that you had before. So that's the same approach, and I was trying to propose that we work on certain states, and kind of map to, okay, this stuff can be safely restarted, this cannot, and this is the transitional state that we will set it to. So we will not leave resources back that are stuck in creating forever, for instance. So it's the obvious things is what I was thinking through. So that's what I've kind of written down over here. Um, but in order to do that for ourselves, though, we need to convince ourselves that this is deterministic. So if at all we are trying to create something, and the share service is down, when we come back, can we actually check whether that creation operation is completed, and how would we do that? Because we would need to check with this specific storage driver in the storage backend, and do we have mechanisms to reach out and do that? Today we do. Turns out we have mechanisms like ensure shares. We also have get share status, which we introduced for async operations specifically. So I feel like we can continue to build on top of that by extending the definition of those to go beyond those specific statuses that they're concerned about. And that's my in short the proposal. I don't want to take too much time into that. I want to get into what do we do after we find out. We do those state transitions. We do rollbacks. Rollbacks for us would mean to clean up the database resources, to clean up the quotas, so that the human administrator operator does not need to do that, and they will have enough observability to say that this was done. So this is a market improvement than saying that. Today what we do is we just log it saying you have to take care of it, which is easy to miss. But as far as an audit goes, it is better to say, because we knew what to do, we have done it. So that so you kind of probably have very little cleanup, if anything, to do. We can't get all of it. I think some of it it can get too complex to do. Like for example, if you're trying to manage something into Manila, can we see that it was done? I'm not sure, because we have a lot that goes on with changing the metadata of an object when it comes into Manila. So maybe we are in the midst of those metadata changes. The share backend knows better, but even that would be building on top of the existing assumptions. So I feel like that. We can start by saying we will first transition those to error, and it can be reattempted by the administrator. So same state as today, except that Manila will handle that state transition instead of trying to leave it in an unknown state, in a transitional state. Uh, so that's the approach that I'm proposing. And the other thing I was investigating was, is there a way for us, just with the whole health check mechanism, to make this better for ourselves? So the health check mechanism is going to is proposing to add an interface into the drivers that the drivers can plug into, that allows them to tell us what their state is. So if we could, on something that takes a long time, have a similar health check, sorry, an extension on that, built on top of that, that's like a heartbeat that kind of allows us to go back and update the resources, saying, yeah, looks like the driver's still working on it. The driver's still working on it. The driver's still working on it, and we will know, because that when the ping check fails, that okay, we have to do something else cleanup or rollback. And so that can be built on top of this reconciliation logic that happens on the driver during the startup time. And I just made a passing reference over here to the Ensure Shares API that we worked on a few cycles ago that Carlos was proposing. Carlos has gotten implemented, so that should dovetail with this approach. So today, if you can turn off ensure shares as a mechanism at startup time in some sense, and actually like you don't need to restart the service. You can invoke an API to do that part for you. So we would want to make sure that this sort of reconciliation can be invoked as well through the same mechanism if we are building on top of it. Um, that's the goal. I'm sure that has a lot of unknowns, thoughts, etc. So I think a specification would be a good place to flush things out. And I was planning to propose one, based off these thoughts, these early thoughts, and I'll go into a little more detail about those recoverable states over there, and also about the existing driver interfaces that that and how drivers behave with them today, that if we can use them at all, and so on. As that's all I had. We are over time for this, but I was just wondering if anybody had thoughts, questions. Yeah, Girish.
So it's all means from means polling mechanism. Actually, we are just looking on the storage backend health, and based on that, it might be we are might be doing some corrective action like that, right?
Yeah,
Or
correct.
so is it possible that our storage backend, which might be sending some trap or some kind of event actually, and based on that we can do the corrective action. So it's kind of reverse actually, means our is something went wrong in our backend, and it's sending some event kind of things, and based on that event actually I will go and do the some corrective option operation on my backend storage from the OpenStack point of view.
Like a call back into OpenStack
Right.
uh, that the storage can initiate. That's actually yeah, it's pretty fair. I didn't think of that angle of things. Like,
Mhm.
I expected the storage is always available, doing
Mhm.
stuff, and we'll be imperatively driving it from the driver. Um,
Okay.
but that's an interesting aspect to saying, yeah, you know what, something happened here that I don't have the have this share anymore, or there's something going on with the share, it's unavailable. So you
Mhm.
have a way to hook into that. uh,
Right. Yeah, suppose my share went offline or somehow, I will go and based on the event, I will go and make it online or something like that. So doing
right.
some corrective action based on the event actually, which is sending by the your backend.
Yeah, yeah, it's worth exploring. I can,
Yeah,
I can think through that, but if you have those ideas, feel free to type them out into the etherpad as well. It'll help.
yeah, yeah. Sure.
Kumar, you
Kumar.
have the reason name.
Yeah, I think Girish is referring to the push mechanism to have a pub sub kind of thing, where let's take an example like ONTAP can push SNMP traps, right? That can be responded instead of pulling, let's say, for the status of a replica. If there is a SNMP trap that can be set, that eventually ONTAP will push it to the subscribers, and we should be able to take care of that whenever the event has been received. I mean, the subscription has been broadcasted, right? The message has been broadcasted. That's what he's trying to refer, I think. In fact, this is one of the things that we are kind of seeing will be a need when it comes to the you know, a failover thing when there is a site A is down in the replication. and side B is kind of being switched. It's an automated failover, let's say. If there is a mechanism that uh, we can expose this to the PubSub kind of mechanism. Instead of we as a driver periodically pulling for the status of the replica for every 5 minutes or interval, that can be taken as a event based mechanism. It can respond something like that. It can be built, or what is what we are looking at.
Right. Right.
Yeah, totally fair. That's an interesting angle. I mean, yeah, certainly we can think through this, um, and maybe we can incorporate a listener for that sort of a thing. Um, it's a yeah, it probably has to be. I mean, my first point would be how generic would that be, um, and can it be extended to all drivers, or can we have a generic approach to all the other drivers? And maybe part of it would become that instead of, I mean, this pub sub mechanism is an optional thing, but the default is that the driver periodically polls for some sort of information.
Agree. It's a kind of a opt-in kind of
Mm.
feature, like SNMP trap. You can configure. You should be able to configure. Then only you will get the traps and the events. Otherwise, it will always fall back to that pooling mechanism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other questions for Gautam and Francesco?
I think Francesco added the Nova spec at line
Um,
376. Uh,
no, I didn't, but I
oh, sorry, I
uh,
thought that was you. My
It's
bad.
Maurice. Yeah.
no, no,
Maurice.
that's
Okay.
fine. I think there is some work on that front too. For from the Manila perspective, on Graceful Shutdown, we are lucky enough that we have um, we don't have the same problem that Nova Compute has, that receive the same the RPC calls for new work and current work on the same RPC, the same queue, and they need to basically distinguish between what is new work and work that is already in progress. We can easily manage that part with Manila, but we have some investigation that we have to do for Manila data, for example, for long running operations. I know that there is an effort in Nova to reduce the amount of long running operation, make things async so you can manage easily the shutdown of services. You can save some status, you can stop accepting some work and do some cleanup before shutting the service down, and then do something similar to what Manila is thinking about during the startup. We do the ensure share, for example, some reconciliation, and that's basically in line with the work that is done by other groups. So I think while we didn't explicitly discuss about the concerns about graceful shutdown, uh, we can investigate and prepare something for the next PTG and have some POC eventually for that part. I think this is somehow connected with the health check system and what we just discussed, because when you have a way to retrieve your status, the status of components, and see what you're processing, what you need to stop, and what you need to finish as a work, and you are able to save your status, then reconciling that status will be easier. So I think graceful shutdown for the next cycle will be looking the other parts of the work.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's certainly. I think we can build the build this into the specs that we are proposing, because they are related. Health check, graceful
Yeah,
resumption, and shutdown. So we
yeah.
can say that we are working towards basically resiliency in total at the end of it. But you're right that we don't suffer from the re-entry thing that Nova has. I think the only things that we would do is from the share manager to the data service and back. That would be the only equivalent to that. And with resuming or reconciling existing stuff, there was one concern that I had, which happens today, which is that a message comes in, and it's barely processed, but it is consumed by the service, but it's not really done anything. So the driver is barely aware of it because we are still doing some pre-flight checks and so on, and the service dies. And that's the sort of thing where the RabbitMQ queuing is not helping us, because we just took it out of the queue, but we didn't resume it, and that's where maybe the reconciling logic will take care of that sort of thing. Um, we had to be a little
Yeah,
little deliberate around that.
yeah, that makes sense, and that's actually the risk for general flow. um, we can create some sort of cleanup mechanism that can work across the pending work that was done before the shutdown. In general, we can pre-hook something. I mean, in Kubernetes environments, you can pre-stop the service, which means that if you have a termination period, seconds, and you provide a pre-hook script that is able to do some cleanup, for example, or trigger a flow within Manila, you can basically execute the script and then using the remaining time to process the determination of the existing services. After this termination period, you get a sig kill. This means that basically, if you have a termination time that is 60 seconds, you can segments in two parts. One is the cleanup, and the other part is the real termination. And we can play with this kind of abstractions to make sure that some work has been processed. There is no leftovers before doing the shutdown of the services, or simply mark as um, something that should be that is invalid basically before shutting down, and when the service is resuming can recalculate things and go looking to that particular request that was marked as invalid because there was that particular event. So those are just thoughts. I think those are applicable to bare metal. It's not just Kubernetes. Kubernetes is useful as an example where you have a framework that already provides you some hooks where you can put scripts and pieces, but it's pretty much the same for bare metal. Actually, it's even easier. So there are, I think, this kind of things that we can discuss about the shutdown.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. So we have some spec writing to do, and probably we can continue the discussion there.
Yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah. Any other questions for Gautam and Francesco? Right. Thank you, Sandra says no. Yeah, great discussion, and I think these are two great additions. Both the health checks, which will be of great use for many deployments, having a better approach for that. So really love the approach, and also the graceful shutdowns. I think it will be helpful to have the recovery, and also it will help us catching up to approaches other projects are also doing. Thanks, folks. I think that takes us to our next topic of today, and then after that topic, we'll take a break and we'll have another topic. But yeah, the next topic is new Manila driver for HPE Storage. We had Saurabh in the room
Hello.
joining us from
Yeah.
HPE. Saurabh, would you like me to continue screen sharing, or would you like you to do the screen sharing?
You could just continue. Yeah.
Sure.
I just put the queries here for the new Manila driver we are trying to add for HP storage. So I just wanted to discuss these. Basically, there are I went to the requirements, the mandatory requirements. So there are some limitations in the HP storage. So just wanted to check if it is possible to do some kind of work around that, or do I have to absolutely have those requirements? So basically, these were the three that I saw. So one was that all the drivers must support read and write and read only access level. So right now in the initial release, the HP storage doesn't have a read-only option. It has by default read-write enabled for all clients. So uh, is that okay to have? We could just error out if the user tries to specify read-only and only allow read-write. Is that okay? Uh, I mean, this functionality would be included in the upcoming releases, but yeah, for the first release of the storage, this is not there.
Yeah, I think it can be a bit of a security constraint, but if it is only read write, and all clients mean all clients, right? So you won't be restricting it to any IP address or something like
Uh,
that for any
so
user.
there is support for reducing the clients. Like you could have only certain clients uh, allowed access, but yeah, if the access is allowed, it will be read write only and no root squash. That's the default.
Okay. Yeah, I see Anoop's comment there, and I think that's pretty much where I was also trying to take this. So the main problem with this is that this could be also a security issue, considering like all of the um, yeah, considering the access rule feature design and the way that we do the access control. So just yeah, if we allow read write for everyone, it can lead to unwanted things. I'm not sure if you'd like to add something else on that, Anoop, but yeah, that was also something I was thinking about, or other people as well, if they would like to chime in.
Yeah. So from my experience, I think there is something called a root level access, and then there is a namespace level access, right, which ends up giving the volume or the share the actual access. So most of the storages actually have a two-level control where they would have something called a root or default policy versus a volume level or a share level policy, so that you can give access to the root uh, namespace, and then you can allow the actual volume or share level namespace to be decided by a different policy. Is that something that is missing in this driver? Is what I wanted to just check. Or is it always read write?
So I just want to clarify one thing. There is not many, in general, any other drivers also, right? So basically, this is a host-based access control only we are giving, right? So in the host-based access control, you have three categories wherein you say all host and the specific range of hosts, something like that. And then the permissions wise, read-write access, read-only access, root squash, and no root squash, right? So these options are already available for all the drivers, isn't it? There is nothing like a security reason. Here, what we are trying to say is, in this, we are not providing, at least for the release which we are talking about, the current release, there is no control of choosing the read-only or read-only option. It's read-write always, but then the user can still go ahead and control against the host, saying, okay, only these hosts can have the read-write access and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to say is, it's nothing major change as such, just the final control of giving read write and read only options, and
Okay.
mm, so that is the options only is not is missing, but otherwise in general it aligns well with the other drivers also, right? Wherein we provide, even today in other Manila drivers, we do have an option where they can create a read write share, isn't it, for the host and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just
So
to,
so I think we are talking about access levels and access to, right? Access to all clients is what, I think is a bigger problem. Access level can be read write or read only for now. But when you provide access to
if you
all,
are
which is
saying this is the default behavior, are you talking about the default behavior? If it
I
is the
think the
default behavior, default is no host gets access. Every
I,
for all
I
hosts it's deny access. That's how the
I
okay.
think
default.
So
that
it is deny
all
by default.
clients is causing
Yeah.
confusion, right? That all clients means all allowed clients. I think I'd correct
Okay.
that. That's, I mean, you could allow or deny clients, just that if you are allowed, you would have read write only. Yeah,
So
Got
that's
it.
that's what
Got
I just want to say. If the default option is if the user doesn't provide any explicit host-based
So
access, it is all
got it.
the hosts denied access. Yeah, that is
So
what.
basically, you are saying all allowed clients are only allowed to have read-write access as of now.
Uh, right.
Read-only access is something that you cannot
It's
provide.
coming in the next
It
the
is not in.
subsequent releases.
Okay, that
Yeah,
clarifies. Thank you.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
makes sense.
so. I think this should be okay, right? Given this limitation.
Gautam?
No, I think Girish was
Yeah, Chris was right. Sorry.
first. Let's go.
Yeah, means if we have a control to giving the access to the set of host, okay, which means they can only write on the volume. I think in that point actually it's fine for me actually to have this action. So yeah, we should have some control actually to giving, okay, this is the host who have that authority to writing on the volume. So that should be there actually. So if we have that, so I think it's fine for me according to me. Other can give their opinion.
Yeah, I think when we wrote out the minimum driver requirements, it was an afterthought for the existing drivers, and we saw that all of the existing drivers supported read-only rules, and they also supported read-write rules. So so the both the access levels were something that we could ask for straight away. So this is a net new thing. There is nothing that is built on top of this as far as Manila features go. You're just providing access, and that's about it, right? I mean, if anything, if the new share attachments logic that Nova is introducing is probably the consumer in the first in the OpenStack space itself. So we kind of know what that consumption model is. So it Nova for now is not requesting read-only access, but it in theory can if it were to implement some new mechanisms and so on. So there might be users that need read-only access for certain workflows very strictly. And that might be the concern here, that we want to make sure that access level is always supported. Um, but it's a limitation in the hardware, sorry, in the firmware. You're not able to do much in this, but you're still wanting to propose your driver so that you can make incremental progress here. So I guess the question becomes, what is it that we can expose to the end users that are used to a particular experience with Manila, that they have two access levels, and this was working with some shares, but it doesn't work with some shares, because we don't expose the detail of the backend to the end user, right? We don't say this is your share is on HPE or on NetApp or on Dell. We actually just say this is a share, and this is the export path, and this is it uses this protocol, and that's it. So as long as we can abstract away that information and still provide useful info to the end user, I think it's fine. So what would that useful information look like? I think an async error message today is a good vehicle for you. The drivers have access to this message interface that allows you to let an end user know that something was done or something had a problem, etc. So we've built on top of that over the years, and so maybe you can use that as a vehicle to communicate that as well. Um, but your question is also, what do we do? Can we error out? I would caution against erroring out an update access method. Update access is a bulk access action. So you can have a bunch of rules that the user is asking on a particular share, and that gets batched and provided to the driver, and that batch is provided again and again as the user is adding more and removing rules and so on. So on a batch action, if you error out, you're basically you're not going to provide them access to the other clients where they didn't have any concerns, for instance, so that where your driver didn't have concerns. So the way we've implemented this is we have granularity. So every access rule has its own error status that you can set. So you can choose to set an error state on the read-only rules, and that actually will mean something to the share manager. It'll make sure that when in the delete path, those rules are treated differently. So I'd ask you to consider that part when you're implementing the update access method. So set the access state to error, set the user message, let the users know why something went into an error. And then when you start allowing it in the next release, perhaps, or as a bug fix, backport or whatever, you're going to have, you can just peel off these things individually because now your hardware supports it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we can provide like error messaging with like granular access rules as well. So that should be doable. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yep, sounds good.
Uh, yeah, thanks. So and the next part was that share size. So when we create a share, there has
I
to
think
be.
Anup had a concern. Sorry about that. Anup had his hand up.
Okay.
Yeah. So my point was, I think, Gautam, one use case for this can be, for instance, if I want to just do a backup and mount the volume or share, uh, for backup purposes, I would just want to give a read-only access, right? I do not want to give a read-write access, for instance. Like, I just wanted to add up to the use cases that, I can
Yeah,
think
you're right.
of that.
And that's a great point because I totally missed that. And yes, we are a first party consumer ourselves in the Manila service today. So it's backups and migrations, both. We
Right.
use access rules and we ask for read only access rules. So technically, if somebody wants to back up their HPE share, those that will not be possible if you error out like this because technically, I mean, that particular access will only ask for read only access. Again, security concern, right? We don't want to accidentally write something into a share that's getting backed up or getting migrated onto something.
Right.
So that's a limitation that you will have, that you'll impose out of this.
So backup, you mean the snapshot? Right now, there's no snapshot support. Would that?
No,
Uh,
we don't need snapshot support for share backups. Share backups today, there is a generic mechanism where an end user can specify a share to be backed up, and we'll if they have an NFS share, it gets mounted on this Manila data service, and all the data gets copied out into a particular store.
okay.
So, is this a must ask, or can we just for now, can we just provide with this and the subsequent release? Anyway, we have planned to provide this read-only access and other access permissions. So, for the H release, can we go ahead and with this limitation, and then the subsequent release, can we enhance this?
Yeah,
Or is it
I guess
like,
you're in a situation where you can't implement this, right? So
yeah,
without it, so that's the so as long as you document that properly, but know that there ought to be some sort of a for somebody that's an administrator or something, a way to work around the situation. That'll be the next question from somebody. So I need to still use backups, right? I can't live without him. That's a compliance concern for me, for instance. What do I do with this driver at that point? So there should be a way. I think I'm not sure if we have added support for configuration for that sort of thing. Like, can the migration backup rules be read write instead of read only? I don't know, but maybe that's worth exploring.
okay, okay.
So that means that it's a change outside of your driver to Manila in case you have to make it.
Okay.
Right? That'll allow you to work around this limitation that you have. But what are we thinking in terms of it's not available today, it'll be available after time X? Is that time X determined?
Yeah, maybe within next 6 months, because the next 3 months release activities are also planned. So within the next 6 months, definitely we plan to do this. So that's why I'm asking, should we wait for the read-only access option to be available to proceed with vanilla driver, or can we go ahead now with this limitation and then eventually in the 6 months time frame we will remove it?
Yeah. So yeah, Anup, you were typing into a comment. Did you have?
Yeah,
Did you want to share?
I think, yeah, that is the only point. I mean, yes, it is maybe, for now you can take it as an exception, document it well so that, people know that, they can run into problems if it gets wrongly mounted to VMs which are trying to take, say, backups, and if someone tries to, add a write script or something like that, right? So that is the kind of risk that you run into. But if you document it well, and fix this in the next iteration, I think that is what I was just trying to recommend.
Sure, thanks.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, 6 months out is not that far out. I mean, it's just after we've shipped the release, I think. So as it looks like we can play this fine. Get your driver like in shape, the CI in shape, and so on, and document this so that we can give ourselves a known issue uh, that we can hand out around this and follow up.
Sure,
Yep.
thank you. Yes,
Okay.
sir, go ahead.
Yeah. So, okay, moving ahead, that next one, yeah, there is a requirement for the share size. When you create a share, you have to specify a size. It has to be at least 1 GB or more. Right now, there's no concept of a size or a quota for the share, and it would just, if you just create a share, you could just utilize the whole cluster space, the available space. So, is that also going to be a problem, or can uh, I mean, the UI right now doesn't allow, you can't specify uh, any, it is a mandatory parameter. So what we were thinking of, we could either ignore that parameter, but that the user wouldn't know like what happened to the size I gave. So instead of that, again, some error message that tells them, yeah, you have to specify the whole cluster size as the share size, so that all the shares that are created on this cluster are just like equal to the cluster size itself.
So basically, I just want to give a add to the whatever Saurabh has said, right? So the architecture here is we have a single file system or single namespace. So there is no file system to share. There is no number of file systems we create and then create share on top of it, right? It's a single file system per cluster. So that way, the file system size can grow till as long as you have a physical capacity of the cluster. So that's why at this point there is no uh, limit as such imposed on the share, and we are working on the capacity quota for the next release. Okay, that will come in next 3 months. That's the plan right now. So for the current implementation, what is available for the end user is that you there is no limit imposed on the share because of the single namespace or the single file systems per cluster which is available today. So that's the context here, and then that's why we cannot impose any size as such. Yeah, Gautam.
Yeah. So all right. So this has come up before, and you're not the first person to ask this question in this space, especially. So think of the cloud use case, right? So in the cloud use case, just like you've probably come down to that same point in 23. I'm just trying to recap that a little bit for how this is consumed. You have operators that are exposing a service to a bunch of end users, tenants, and these folks are consuming it, and the operators gonna have to bill these tenants in some way, whether they're running this internally in their own you know uh, own companies, organizations, whatever. So it's still funny money, but it's something that needs to be accounted for, and that's why that's what the share, the size, and the quota are all based out of. There are a lot of storage systems that don't have this concept, but they layer on top of that to support this use case, that there needs to be something that prevents people from exceeding some limits and so on. So because it's not really an infinite thing. um, so I think in the past people have come and asked if we could make the size optional, and that means that we are aware as and sorry, that means that the operator is aware that they're using something that has no concept of quota enforcement, and so it'll become a consumption based model. And the way that works is, so you have the size being optional, but then the billing happens based on what is consumed, and so the driver exposes more data to the to Manila to explain, okay, this is what is actually being consumed, and this is periodically updated to Manila. So the way we implemented those is, there is today a way to tell Manila that there is what's consumed, and we expose that to the through the same observability mechanisms. So if you have Prometheus, Ceilometer, whatever, you can actually read that information and see what's consumed. Not all drivers support it, but the idea was this, that we would allow unsized shares. That was the concept, but we never did that, because there was a spec that never got implemented. I'm going to just drop that as a link in your spec for you to consider. That said, I heard something that I think makes this a little moot. You said 3 months, so that feels like something that we ought to probably just wait for, right?
Um, okay, so that's why we are having this discussion to understand what are the mandatory requirements from
Yeah.
Manila driver side, right? So we were under the impression that yes, because with the latest improvements on the storage side, also if you see, like, there is a single file system per the global namespace per the cluster. That is a common trend right now, right? So that's why we were just thinking, yeah. So it aligns well on that because that's the architecture we also have it. So yeah, eventually when we support quotas, then we can enforce the limit on it. Otherwise, the user can feel free and then use the complete storage which is available for them. Especially when you are talking about the metering aspects, of course, we can provide the information about the consumption. So this share has consumed so much space, right? That information even today we are having it. So won't that help the user? Meaning, if there is a use case where they want to bill the end user against the usage, then it's the consumption, right? How much they have consumed. That information is anywhere. That information we can provide into.
Yeah, the problem there is that we have, I mean, you can provide that information, but we have the way to expose that information to the metering logic,
Yeah.
but we didn't build out the user experience. That's where that spec is. So the user experience would become that the size is optional at that point, and
Okay.
operators would set infinite quotas, and so on. So that's the approach, but we've never, like, we didn't complete that, given that it looked like that at that time that this was not as popular. um, uh,
Sure.
to be fair, I think it didn't get as much operator support either at that time. um, so I mean, it's worth pursuing again, which is kind of where I'm asking you to weigh it, I guess. To would you rather change the Manila user experience and pick up this kind of work again, uh, and then land the driver, or would you just wait so that you can fit the mold around how it's consumed today?
Okay, we'll also think about it. So, but with quotas, you are okay with it, right? So, in this model, if we use quotas as the enforcement for the size, you are okay with it. That is the
What
model
does
which
that
is
mean?
accepted. The
Could you explain?
capacity quota. So when we create, since it's a single file system, right? So when we create a share, yes, share doesn't have a space limit attached to it. Then we want to just say capacity quota in the sense for this particular share, you can go only this much. The hard limit and the soft limit is what we are planning to implement. Against that share, we will say that okay, 10 GB is the maximum capacity the user can uh, consume it against this particular share. Okay, that's the hard limit which is set. And if the user prefers, they can go ahead and change it also. That's where we are thinking that extend functionality, right? So if the user wants to allow meaning the admin wants to allow the user to consume more data, then they can extend the hard quota limit on that particular share. So that way it is limited, meaning the capacity is limited for that particular share. So this is what we are calling it as the capacity quota on that
Yeah,
share.
I mean that solves the problem. So I don't know why. Like I'm not. I'm a little confused then as to what it is that HPE is then implementing. Is it implementing it
So
in a different way?
That's going to come in the next release.
that
Like
is
it's
not going to come in the next release, and for now it is not there. That's what I meant as
Oh, I
after
see.
3 months.
Okay, okay,
Yeah. So right now we don't have it. We will eventually
right.
have it in the next 3 months time frame. So that's why I was
Yeah,
just saying. Eventually, when we have it, we can enable it. So if we really have to wait, also, this method is fine, right? Because we are
yeah,
not
yeah.
going
This
to
is
attach
this is
any
the
file system.
yeah, this is a known method of doing things. I mean, you'll find lots of examples like this, but I mean, the nearest one that I'm very familiar with is this FFS driver that has this. We don't really have hard limits on Ceph. It's a little worse. The limits are set by the client, which is one of the worst reasons why you'd not want to use it in a multi-tenant cloud, which is why Ceph NFS exists, because we can somehow control the client in a way and enforce the limit a little bit more. But yeah, this is a known pattern in storage, capacity management, that your quotas are not like hard limits on the storage. They end up becoming, they're not containers in a sense. They end up becoming quotas and enforcement, and that quota enforcement logic happens somewhere, um, and that will satisfy what Manala is asking for as well. So size becomes a quota.
Thanks.
and it doesn't have to be thick provision, right? The quotas, what
Yep.
is good,
Yeah.
that should be fine, right?
No need for, yeah,
Okay.
exactly. There are lots of drivers where the storage systems that they're working on are thin provisioning only,
Okay.
and that's fine. Sorry, I think Anup had his hand up.
Yep.
Yeah, so my question was about that thick provisioning. Does this driver support thick provisioning?
Uh,
Storage support thick provisioning?
no, not right now.
Not
So
right. Okay,
even
so it
with
is thin
quotas, it will
only.
be thin only. Yes.
Got it.
Still
Okay, so it
provisioning.
is okay. So that was my first question because you did not. You said that there is no size, so it kind of bumped into me. Second question I had was this quota is the storage side quota, right? Not a quota on OpenStack Manila because
Yes, yes, yes.
when it
Storage state.
Yeah.
Yes, storage.
got it. Okay. Sure, I get I think, the conversation kind of, that you had with Gautam. I got some understanding of, how this is supposed to work. So, yeah, those were my questions. That's all. Just wondering how this will work actually in a cloud environment. Yeah, that's all.
Yep. Thanks, Anup. And yeah, I agree with the points here. I think the access rules are a smaller concern, but the quota would be the bigger concern, and I would also be in favor of waiting. But I think this is still feasible for this release if it is 3 months, right? If we look at the release schedule, which is the thing that I'm just showing, we are currently at this phase of the release schedule. So and we expect the drivers to merge by August 24th. Which is the feature freeze. Of course, we expect that the drivers are proposed a bit earlier in the feature proposal freeze, which often happens 3 or 4 weeks before the actual feature freeze, but the changes do not need to merge until the feature freeze. So I do think there's some time for uh, CI setup and also like the work on the driver on the things that can be worked already. And then when you get your hands on the new release, it's going to be the matter of implementing the size beats and also yeah, something else that you might have the need. So I do think that even though you wait, if the timeline is 3 months for the new release, I do think this is still suitable, can be still suitable for the OpenStack Hibiscus release.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure.
The only
Thanks.
thing that I would ask in this case is please over communicate with us and do let us know your plans if you are actually still pursuing this for Hibiscus release and if you're waiting on the release of the HPE. The more we know about that, the better, and the better we can plan around this for this cycle. So that's the only ask that I would have. Like, please over communicate over this. Let us know where you are and start submitting the patches and work on the CI as soon as you folks can.
Sure, definitely.
Sure.
Awesome. No further
I
thoughts
think
on the.
that's all the questions I had. I think the third one is kind of already answered. Same. Uh, there's one other question Srinesh had for the
Uh,
existing.
Uh, yeah, we sorry, we are a bit behind on the schedule today. So if we can try to figure out that quickly, that would be awesome. Or we can also just as a reminder, we can also take this to the Manila Upstream weekly meetings. I apologize for being such in a rush today, but yeah, we are a bit tight with time on the PTG.
no, I think it's okay. I can bring this up in the chat. Yeah, it's regarding our in we are planning proposing snapshot in our existing driver, but I'll bring this up later. It's okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and again, I do apologize for like being behind in the schedule, but yeah, happy to answer the questions here on the Etherpad and also in an upstream weekly meeting if you folks prefer that. Yeah. Any other questions on these topics? Okay.
Nothing else.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Sarab, Priya, and Nesh for bringing up this topic. And I do appreciate the understanding of constraints of time today. I will stop the recording right now